Hi, I'm Anthony Marinelli, and I'm here today to uncover the mystery of the frog sound on Michael Jackson's Thriller song. This is a sound that a lot of people have been wondering how it was recorded and who played it and on what instrument it was played on. So I have an early instrument here. It's called a Casio 401, and it has presets, and it also has a rhythm section in it over here. It's the first one, the first Casio instrument that had an auto rhythm section. But we're going to focus on this preset section. There's no synthesizer section. You just call up the sound and it plays. And I'm going to let you hear this sound and you tell me what you think. It sounds pretty close to the frog sound. It's interesting to notice that when this sound comes in the middle of the breakdown, there's already a bass, the original ARP 2600 bass that's playing the bass that's in the song. So there's basically two sounds happening at the same time. And this is an orchestral, an orchestrating technique that I can see Quincy, coming up with, where you might have, a stand-up bass or bass section, string bass, but then you add contrabassoon or bassoon to it, and it gives it this sort of like edgy little point to the sound. And this is very much like adding a bassoon. So I think it's just indicative of how Quincy was taking his orchestrational techniques and, applying them to pop music, because you need something sort of clever in pop music and ear-catching, but it's the same kind of idea, and it affects how you orchestrate. So keep that in mind, bring something new in, because this song doesn't appear until later in the song, and now you have something fresh that just takes your ear away along with the existing groove. Let's go visit my longtime friend Stephen Ray. He is going to be able to give us some more backstory on the frog sound. And I think now's a good time to please like and subscribe. Push that button. Keep us going. Let's get over to Stephen's. Hi, I'm Anthony Marinelli here with my longtime close friend Stephen Ray. We're laughing because this is going to be a fun one today. We're in front of the Casiotone CT401 keyboard that's responsible for a very famous sound and a very fun sound. And Stephen was around a lot during the making of Thriller, and he knows the backstory of how this really fun sound ended up on the song Thriller.
Yeah, Quincy, Michael, Rod, everyone wanted a different sound. They wanted something odd at that point in the song, because you always Quincy was always about adding layers and elements of things that you didn't hear, in the intro or in the first 8 to 16 to 32 bars.
Yeah.
There's always part of his production that was so brilliant. Him being the great arranger that he was and is, wanted to add something, a new element, but something that would stick out.
Like a surprise inside the Cracker Jack.
Exactly. And just something really different. And wow, I haven't seen this keyboard. I don't think I've seen this keyboard since 1982. I haven't laid my eyes on this piece of gear here.
I haven't seen it since I was able to borrow it from Rob Rosen from Rosen Sound, who had it.
Wow.
And fixed it up so we could make this video.
Yeah.
So,
So
what's the story?
So the story is, at some point in the song, they wanted in the tag just another element, a rhythmic element, and it worked. Smelly Michael loved it and wanted something that would, just trigger another rhythm movement, within the structure of the song.
Well, sonically too, it really pokes out.
Well, it cuts, yeah. So wanted something that would cut the ear.
Did Quincy was this just the first thing he brought in?
No, I mean, there were other little, they were trying to find the sound.
So where were these keyboards coming from?
Well, this one, Quincy had this at the house. He had one of these at the house. So, at his home studio. So,
was his or was it one of his kids?
No, it was his. It was his. But I remember Rashida would mess around on it, and because it had all these sounds that were very toy-like,
Right.
And pretty amazing.
They brought a few other toy-like keyboards in?
Yeah, well, they had all the other. I remember we tried some things on the gear that you had, and it just wasn't cutting.
I mean, we were always trying things, but I never really remember trying to get something this zany, But I guess the way they think.
Well, Casio back then was a keyboard that wasn't I wouldn't say that it wasn't commonly used.
I've never seen one on a session ever before or since.
Exactly. So, and I think that's where the idea came from. Let's get something that is not commonly used. Let's find something odd, almost like a toy,
Right. So this keyboard has like a rhythm section, and then it has the instruments. And I think, you might gravitate through the orchestral sounds, oboe, clarinet, trumpet, piano, harpsichord, celeste, accordion, electric piano, and then suddenly you hit these two gray buttons.
The mystery buttons.
Yeah. And the first one says funny, and the second one says frog. You want to do the honors? There it is.
Dum-ba-dum.
Right? And you were telling me earlier, like...
Greg.
Well, okay, so who played it?
It was
Who played it?
Greg's left hand or right hand.
So
Probably his left. Yeah.
only the way Greg could play it.
Only Greg, because you had to lock in the pocket.
And
There was no sequencing.
I received a text from Greg saying like he remembers playing and he doesn't remember that he played it on this keyboard. But I mean, clearly this is the sound.
Yeah, this is the sound.
And then choreographers picked up on it.
Yeah.
And
it's another rhythmic piece within Michael Peters' great choreography.
Yeah.
On the video,
It's like-
it adds another element.
you just can't miss it, right?
No.
It really does. It adds such a level to the song. And as silly as it is, it really lifts that breakdown.
Yeah, it really does.
Something like it calls your attention to it, and I guess they were able to trigger their movements, on that rhythm and key off that sound.
Yeah, because it's dun dun dun.
Well done. So we're having a lot of fun today.
Yeah.
This is a Casio Tone.
This is surreal.
CT.
Really, this is really surreal. Looking at this piece of gear here. I mean,
For you. I've never seen it. I wasn't there when this happened.
that literally was 40 years ago. I haven't seen this in 40 years.
So what the lesson? What's the lesson? The lesson is, keep searching, because you can have like the most expensive, best gear in the world, and it doesn't give you always the extra something that you need.
Yeah, it doesn't give you, as they would say, it doesn't give you that extra flavor.
Yeah, and it comes from having an imagination and searching and looking, for something new. And it's so great of them that they didn't do this with it.
Right.
They didn't overdo it, like chords.
Yeah.
They didn't
No.
use like harmonies or anything. It was just the simple little
One sound.
like a little dude. Casio Tone CT401.
Yeah. Yeah. Casio, the last keyboard you would expect to, at that time, to be in a major recording session.
Yeah. So
But here it is.
We found it.
Right.
So now let's go back to the studio and we can break it down some more. So back to the studio. Let's summarize. This Casio keyboard, something similar to this, came from Quincy's house. This is how Stephen remembers it. And there may have been another keyboard. And the reason this happened in the first place is because, Quincy's always looking for something fresh. And being the arranger that he is, he thought, let's try something fun, maybe funny, maybe something different. So he brought in maybe a couple of Casio keyboards and tried some things. And some stories say maybe Rod had an idea. Another story path takes us to James Ingram, who maybe had one of these keyboards or had an idea, because he was hanging around the studio a lot during the making of Thriller. So we don't know yet, but we're going to keep digging into this until we find out. There's other Casio keyboards that have frog sounds on them, a couple of other ones, and I'm looking for ones right from that vintage. But clearly this one has a very similar frog sound, and I don't think you could really tell the difference, but we are looking. This is a fun search, and there's nothing like this album. There's so many rich stories, and it seems like every time we go down a path, we make a bunch of turns and we find out why something happened, and usually it's for a musical reason, because someone was just trying to come up with something different. So I guess this is another lesson to take forward with you when you're working on your songs and you're working inside the box or whatever. It's not like you have to have the box or nothing, or all this expensive vintage gear and outboard gear and that sort of thing. maybe you can just try something silly like this and record it into your system and come up with something like that's really remarkable. And when someone asks you, you'll just say, well, I just pulled some old keyboard off the shelf and there's my remarkable sound. So we're going to keep digging. This is a fun search for us, and stay tuned and we'll have more for you.